56 is the Great Mosque of Cordoba, Spain, under the Umayyad culture caliphate, and it is 5 images. So this is an important piece. Have a good look at those 5 images. The context for this piece is that it began, this region began under the control, or not began, this, but was controlled by the Roman Empire at one point. That matters to one of our images. Then it was controlled by the Visigoths, who invaded and brought down the Roman Empire, the Germanic group from this region. So here the Visigoths controlled the Iberian Peninsula for 300 years. They were Christian, so they built churches. Notably, this is a horseshoe arch, which we're going to see in the Great Mosque of Cordoba. And the debate is, was it the Visigoths that brought the horseshoe arch, or was it the Muslims who brought it to this region? We don't know. In 711, ending the Visigoth reign in the Iberian Peninsula was the arrival of the Umayyad Empire. And so you can see the yellow is kind of the most recent added on region of the early Muslim empires. And this is part of Europe that the Muslims controlled quite famously. So huge impact of culture on Spain and the Iberian Peninsula, Spain and Portugal. The area that the Muslims controlled is called Al-Andalus. And the city that was the capital city where our great mosque is located is Cordoba. So for the time period that the Muslims controlled Spain, the Christians who had lost control were seeking to regain control. So from about 900 through 1492, the Christians were pushing the Muslims out of the Iberian Peninsula. When they got to Cordoba in 1236, they took this great mosque that had been built and they inserted a cathedral in the center of that great mosque. And then they took the minaret that was here and encapsulated it with a bell tower. Pieces of the minaret still exist inside that bell tower. We can see the Roman extent of influence with just this bridge. This is a Roman bridge with arches and barrel vaults underneath it. And you can see in the distance, this is one of our images, by the way, you can see here that this is the Great Mosque of Cordoba. So the high peak right here is the cathedral built later by the Christians in 1236, and this is the bell tower. So in one image, we get the influence of the Romans, we get the influence of the Muslims, and then we get the influence of the Christians all in one piece. This is an incredible image with a lot of history in it. This is a close-up for you to see 1236 cathedral built here inside the Great Mosque. The rest of this, do you see all of this space here? This is the inside of that right here. This is our third image that I'm showing you right now, and this is a hypostyle hall. We've seen that term before related with the Egyptians and the Temple of Amun-Re, where it's columns that hold the roof up. So here we have, these are Roman columns, Corinthian columns, that are holding up these horseshoe-shaped arches, and the arches have what we call a double tier. Here's another image of them, a double tier. And so this, because we have so many of these arches, we have such a huge hypostyle hall, the double tier allow light to flow in. And the columns are actually pretty short columns. And so to get the roof higher, they built 2 levels of arches. The bottom line is they needed all of these columns, all of these arches to create a massive hall, because this is a great mosque, right? It's a Friday mosque. It needs to be big enough to allow all of the parishioners to come in on the Friday noon prayer. Again, the term for reusing material from previous artworks is called spolia, and that's what's being done with these Roman marble or stone columns. Okay, then the other thing that you clearly have noticed, I'm sure, is the red and white color here of the horseshoe mosques. Those are voussoir is the name of these blocks in an arch, and this is the keystone of the arch right here in the center. From all of this, all of the stress pressure radiates. But what voussoir are these stones in the arch, and here in this case, the stones alternate in color. That's because these are red brick, and then this is cut white stone. So it makes a beautiful, beautiful arch. These columns and arches are so prominent in this piece. The courtyard in the Great Mosque kind of replicates it. People have described these columns and arches as like a forest, and so the trees in the courtyard replicate that whole concept. Then also inside the mosque, the Great Mosque, is the mihrab, which is considered one of the most elaborate mihrabs in the world. It is cut stone. It has got mosaic here, different colors of mosaic, and then it's got the gold writing calligraphy from the Quran. And a mihrab is a niche, right? It's just an opening in the wall, like a room. This is one of the bigger ones I've ever seen, and it has origins going back to other religions as well. In the Quran, it mentions that Muhammad went inside a mihrab and meditated. The mihrab is on a Qibla wall, which tells us the direction to Mecca and the direction to pray if we're Muslim. Notice above this mihrab is the dome, or is a dome. It's got this ribbed vaulting in it. Fancy arches we're going to talk about here in a minute. So pretty amazing. And then in terms of our design, this right here, this little black notch here, this is the Qibla wall. So everybody in the hypostyle hall would be praying in this direction toward Mecca. Here's a close-up of the, I didn't get that word. The voussoir here, the close-up of the voussoir, which has got that mosaic, different color mosaic. This is all floral pattern or calligraphy. And then if you look down here in the cut stone, it has been extremely highly designed. And this is a floral or geometric. Up here, you can see geometric motif, because in mosque it's forbidden to have pictures of images of Allah or Muhammad because they're considered perfect and no art could replicate them. And then I think this is the fifth of our images for this piece, and I think it really highlights everything here all together. So here we have this horseshoe arch, and it's got the voussoir here, right? Alternating colors of cut stone in here with brick, and more horseshoe arches, more columns, probably spolia, and then carved out screens that are stone that would have been in the windows. And then noticing here the multifoil arch, just phenomenal. And then geometric design on this wall. So it kind of like takes the entire mosque and puts it onto a wall, in my opinion. It's just quite beautiful. Okay, so this is the Great Mosque of Cordoba. Last thing to note. Oh, actually, I'll talk about that in class. Okay, Great Mosque of Cordoba.